Go ahead.
Alright, so this is the Apollo program, Project Gemini, and Project Mercury. This is Project Mercury. So Project Mercury started out in 1959 with Mercury 7. It was the 7 original astronauts. This is Carpenter, Cooper, Glenn, Grissom, Sierra, Shepard, and Slayton. And Slayton didn't get to fly because he had an irregular heartbeat, but everybody else did. And there were 6 manned missions. So Project Mercury was between 1959 and 1963. Their main goal was to put a man into orbit and recover him and the spacecraft. It consisted of the 7 original astronauts. They launched all the events at Cape Canaveral in Florida. There are 26 total launches and 6 of them were manned. So Project Mercury brought 2 significant accomplishments. Alan Shepard was the first American to enter space. That was May 5th, 1961. John Glenn was the first American to enter orbit, and that was February 20th, 1962. Project Mercury cost about $400 million in 1963. That's about $3 billion today. Or $400 million, excuse me. Breakdown, the spacecraft was about 135, launch vehicles were about 82, operations was about 50, equipment was 70, and facilities were about 53. And this is a stamp that was issued on the day that John Glenn went into orbit. So for the manned missions, Redstone 3 was the first manned mission in space for America. And that's a picture of Alan Shepard before he went into space for the first time. Redstone 4 wasn't really anything significant about that. Atlas 6, that was when John Glenn went into orbit, and that's a picture he took. And then Atlas 7 happened a few months after that. Let's see. Atlas 8 is over there on the right, and then Atlas 9, Cooper actually took that picture when he went up for 22 orbits. The space race. So the Vostok program was a Soviet rival to Project Mercury. They both started in about 1959. Vostok 1 put the first human into space just 3 or 4 weeks before Shepard went up. And then the space supremacy ideology drove further funding. Alright, so this is Project Gemini. And the background is actually Gemini 6 after it was aborted. So there were 16 total astronauts for Gemini, and 3 of them came on from Mercury. New additions to the lineup included Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Edward White. It was the second manned NASA exploration program. The goal was to gain experience for the Apollo program. Kennedy announced in 1961 that by the end of the decade, America would put a man on the moon. So this was kind of a stepping stone in that process. They launched all of the events in Florida again. They had 12 total flights, 10 of them were manned. So 2 major accomplishments again. Edward White became the first American to experience EVA, or extravehicular activity. That was June 3rd, 1965. Neil Armstrong successfully docked 2 ships in space, and that was during Gemini 8 on March 16th, 1966. So this cost about $128 or $1.28 billion back in the day, and that's about $10 billion in 2012. The spacecraft cost about $800 million, the launch vehicles is about $400 million, and the support was about $80 million. And then manned missions, Gemini 3 was March 23rd, 1965. Gemini 4 was a couple months after that, and that's a picture of Edward White during his EVA. Gemini 5 was later that year, and that's a picture from the capsule looking at Florida. This is Gemini 7, so just a little bit out of order here. Gemini 7 went up before Gemini 6, and that was Gemini 7 viewed from Gemini 6 in space, and that was in December 1965. And then Gemini 6 is over there on the right. And with Gemini 6 and 7, it was the first rendezvous in space. They never actually docked, but they came within about about 10 feet of each other. Gemini 8 was March 16, 1966. They sent up this Agena test, how do you say it? A test probe, or something like that. And Neil Armstrong docked with that, and that was the first docking in space between two ships. This is Gemini 9A. We go to Gemini 10, that's it being recovered. Gemini 11 and Gemini 12, and that's a picture of Buzz Aldrin doing some EVA during the last manned mission in Gemini. So Project Gemini really proved that a lunar mission was possible, and Kennedy announced the goal to land on the moon. He announced that on May 25th, 1961. It set the stage for Apollo, giving astronauts experience. And then the Soviets actually beat America to the first EVA. This guy on the left in that picture did that about 10 weeks prior to Everett White doing his.
Okay, so Kennedy promised that the U.S. would land on the moon and bring a man back in 1961 by the end of the decade, so 1970. And it's kind of funny because almost all the Apollo missions were in 1969, so they really came down to the wire. There were 17 Apollo missions, and 12 of them were manned. The first, 1 through 6 were mainly just to test the Saturn rockets, and Apollo 1 is actually Apollo 204, and they named it Apollo 1 because the 3 astronauts that were in that died, and so they thought that they should get the first Apollo name, I guess. It was fueled by the Cold War, and you can kind of see that in the amount of money that was spent, because war gets stuff done. And honestly, I think if the Cold War wasn't going on, this would happen. Okay, so Apollo 1, they have these 3 guys. You had White, Grissom, and Chaffee. And they were actually performing a launch simulation where they sit on the pad and they run all through what they would do for a launch, but they don't actually launch. And there was a circuit that sparked, and because it's pure oxygen in their little probe, the fire spread really quick and they were killed in 19 seconds. You can find pictures of their suits and stuff, but it's just terrible. So here's what it looked like when they were making it, and then that was it after the fire. And it was pressurized inside, so they couldn't pull the door open. And so there's radio transmissions of them talking, and the guy's like, "You smell fire," and then it's just done after that. That's pretty sad, but that's one thing you should take into account for the debates, is that people can die, even if you're not even going to school. Okay, so Apollo 7, basically they were just practicing some orbiting techniques, and they were preparing for Apollo 11, and that's basically what all of them did up until that point. They went into orbit around Earth and gave us a lot of new information about how people deal with being in space. They did a TV broadcast from inside, and it ended up getting okay. So Apollo 8's goal was to orbit around the moon, and it was successful. And that's where they took this picture, probably sample far. It orbited 10 times, and I believe they got back on Christmas morning. Okay, 8 and 9 were just some final tests to make sure that Apollo 11 would run smoothly. They practiced some more maneuvers, and on Apollo 10, they almost crashed into the moon, actually, but they saved it because astronauts had it. Okay, so Apollo 11, you guys know all about this. I would be really disappointed if you don't. But basically, it's Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. And one thing I'd like to point out is that, well, I don't mean to discredit Neil Armstrong, but there were a lot of people who worked just as hard as he did, and you don't even know them, including, you know, the 3 that died on Apollo 1. And most of the astronauts in the Apollo program were not reused, so, you know, those 3 were just picked for that mission. Could have been a different 3, and okay, and then Apollo 12, they were performing a better landing on the moon than Apollo 11, I guess. Should we just stop?
Yeah, we'll pause and we'll start with you guys next time, all right?